My name is Lena Hartwell. I'm 29. And last week, my mother's entire career fell apart because of a photograph she forgot to crop. You've probably seen her, Evelyn Hartwell. The graceful mother with 700,000 followers. The woman who built an empire teaching strangers how to raise children with patience and love. Her book, Graceful Motherhood, has been everywhere. Magazine covers, morning shows, glossy spreads that smell like fresh linen and forgiveness. But the photo that ruined her wasn't from a new shoot. It was from the one she thought she'd erased our family Christmas portrait from 2008. The original before she cut me out. In that photograph, I'm standing beside her. One arm behind my sister Sophie. Both of us laughing at something my father said. When the edited version went online, my space became a shadow. The shape of me replaced by a candle on the mantel. I used to think she cropped me out because I wasn't photogenic. Now I know it was because I didn't fit the story she was selling. Viewers saw a family of 4 wrapped in matching sweaters. But I remember the smell of pine and tension. The silence that followed every flash. Perfection was the only language my mother spoke. And I was the sentence she refused to finish. When the unedited photo resurfaced last week during her televised interview, the internet noticed the 5th hand resting on Sophie's shoulder, the one that didn't belong in Evelyn's narrative. In an instant, every follower she'd ever charmed began to ask the same question: who is missing from her story? My name trended before the show even ended. And within hours, reporters were digging through archives, searching for a daughter who'd vanished somewhere between digital filters and public praise. I didn't post. I didn't explain. I simply opened the box at the back of my closet and found what she had tried to delete. Inside were the proofs. The untouched photographs. The email where she called me a distraction to her brand. I sat on the floor. The noise of the city leaking through the window. Realizing the irony that it took her mistake to make me visible again. She had spent 12 years building perfection out of absence. And I had spent 12 years pretending not to care. But now that the world finally saw the edge where I'd been cut away, I understood exactly how I wanted to start this story. I am the daughter she cropped out of her own life. The call came during a double shift. The hospital humming with the kind of chaos that blurs hours together. My phone vibrated in my scrub pocket while I adjusted a patient's IV. The screen flashing an unfamiliar number from Chicago. I ignored it. Finished my charting, then ducked into the break room when the hall finally went quiet. The message waited. A small red dot beside my name, as if daring me to press play. Miss Hartwell, a woman's voice said. Crisp and professional. This is Ivy Brooks. I'm an investigative journalist working on a feature about parenting influencers. I'd like to talk to you about your mother, Evelyn Hartwell. I froze halfway through a sip of stale coffee as she continued. According to public records, she has 2 children. But I found a school enrollment form from 2009 listing a 3rd Lena. That's you, correct? The rest of her message trailed off with a polite, I'd like to hear your side of the story. The silence that followed was louder than the alarms outside. I stared at the phone, thumb hovering over delete. Every instinct said to erase it. To keep the distance I'd spent years building. But the name Ivy Brooks wouldn't fade. When I left home 12 years ago, I promised myself no one would ever connect me to Evelyn again. Yet here was a stranger who already had. And she had proof. I deleted the message, then undeleted it. Then saved her number as if muscle memory had overruled common sense. By midnight, the ER was quiet except for the ventilators down the hall. I sat in the dark with my phone on the table, replaying Ivy's voice in my head. You existed. 2 words I hadn't heard in any form since I was 17. The fluorescent light flickered once, glinting against the scar just above my eyebrow, the one Evelyn always said ruined our family photos. Evidence. Right there on my skin. Of everything she'd denied. When my shift ended, I found myself outside in the parking lot. The night air heavy with the smell of disinfectant and rain. My reflection stared back from the car window. Tired eyes and a trace of the girl who'd once begged her mother to see her. I called the number before I could change my mind. "This is Ivy," she answered. And I said, "You found what you were looking for." She didn't hesitate. "I found questions your mother can't answer." "I think you can." 2. We spoke for less than 10 minutes. Just enough for her to tell me she had copies of records, yearbook photos, and one document Evelyn's team had tried to scrub from a parenting forum. She asked to meet. Said she'd fly to Austin if I agreed. I didn't say yes or no. Just listened to the hum of static between us until she said softly, "You don't have to decide tonight." I ended the call, sat in the car with the phone still warm in my hand, and whispered to no one. She found me. The words felt strange but solid. Like a door opening I hadn't realized was still locked. The box was still where I'd left it, buried behind winter coats I never wore. The cardboard soft from years of moving. I carried it to the table and cut through the old tape. The sound sharp in the quiet. Inside were photographs wrapped in yellowed paper. The smell of dust and cedar rising like something alive. I unfolded the first one and saw my mother smiling, her arm around Sophie, the Christmas tree glowing behind them. And there I was, standing at the edge. Half shadow, half daughter. I compared it to the image that lived on her blog, the one with bright filters and a caption about gratitude. My place had been replaced by a garland. The cropped edge of my sleeve turned into ornament light. I kept turning the pages. Photo after photo. Birthday. Graduation. Easter brunch. All the same edits. The same precise absence. Then I found the envelope wedged between old school certificates. It was an email printout dated March 2013. From Evelyn. Hartwell at Grace Mom Life. 2-8. To her publicist. The line in bold read, "For branding clarity, we will exclude the eldest daughter. Lena. She doesn't fit the tone." One stir. When Ivy arrived that evening, she barely glanced at the walls before sitting across from me. "You have the originals?" she asked, and I slid the stack toward her. She studied each one, eyes narrowing as she lifted the edited versions she'd printed from the blog. "She didn't just crop you, she replaced you," Ivy said quietly. I nodded, the words catching somewhere between shame and relief. "I think she wanted to erase the years before she became perfect," I told her. And Ivy replied, "That's not perfection. That's revision." We sat for a while in silence. The only sound the shuffle of paper as I sorted what was left. I handed her the email. The ink faint but readable. She read it twice. Then said, "This is evidence of intentional misrepresentation. If she monetized those posts, it crosses into fraud." I watched her slide the page into a clear folder. Her movements deliberate. "You could sue," she added. But I shook my head. "I don't want her money. I want people to see the truth." She gave a small nod. Then asked, "Do you have anyone else who can confirm this pattern?" The next day I found Ms. Clark in the directory of retired teachers. When I called, she recognized my name immediately. "Lena Hartwell," she said, voice trembling. "I've wondered about you for years." I met her at a cafe on the east side, where she slid a worn manila folder across the table. "I filed a report once," she whispered. "Child neglect. Emotional abuse." It was marked unsubstantiated within a week. Inside were notes written in her tidy script: weight loss, recurring bruises, frequent absences. She closed the folder and said, "I kept a copy because something in me knew it would disappear." One? That night I spread everything across my kitchen counter. arranging the photos in 2 rows, originals on the left, edited on the right. I read the email again, each word colder than I remembered. My phone buzzed with a blocked message that said only, "Stop digging." I deleted it. Though the number was already burned into memory, when Ivy called to check in, I told her about it, and she said, "It means you're close." I looked at the table, the evidence of a life edited out of existence, and answered, "Close enough to finish what she started." The apartment felt smaller as I packed the photos and reports into a new folder, labeling it with one word, truth. Outside, the streetlights flickered against the blinds, each pulse matching the rhythm of my heartbeat. I sealed the folder and placed it by the door, knowing I'd carry it wherever I went next. Somewhere out there, my mother was still smiling for cameras, still selling a story about love and grace. And now I had proof of the one chapter she couldn't control. The invitation came from Ivy 2 days before the broadcast. She said the producer at KTEX had agreed to let me speak after Evelyn's segment, provided I stayed within legal boundaries and presented verifiable evidence. "You won't have to attack her," Ivy told me. "Just tell the truth." I said yes before fear had time to interfere. Though the idea of facing my mother again after 12 years made my chest tighten, the folder of photographs sat on my desk like a living thing, the proof of everything she'd edited out, waiting to be seen. The morning of the event, I arrived at the venue where Evelyn's book launch was already in motion. Her poster covered the lobby wall, the words, "Graceful Motherhood," looping above her smiling face. Ivy met me near the side entrance, her voice steady when she said, "Once you're on stage, keep it factual. The visuals will speak for themselves." I nodded, clutching the folder that felt heavier than it should. From the hallway, I could hear Evelyn greeting the audience with her soft public voice, the one she used when selling compassion. When I stepped into the wings, a producer whispered, "You'll go on after her Q&A." I caught a glimpse of my mother under the stage lights, sitting beside the host. "Elegant and precise," the interviewer asked. "Evelyn, what inspired this book?" And she smiled like she had rehearsed every breath. "My children," she said. "Sophie and Noah are my greatest teachers. They've shown me what unconditional love looks like." The audience applauded, and I felt the words land like glass in my throat. The host continued, "What would you say to parents struggling to balance authenticity and image?" Evelyn answered, "Authenticity is everything. I share our life exactly as it is. Imperfect but full of love." Ivy glanced at me, murmuring, "That line's going to age badly." The host smiled, oblivious, and announced, "We have a special guest joining us tonight. Someone connected to the Hartwell family story." Evelyn's head tilted, her smile still fixed as she said, "Oh, I wasn't told about a guest." The host looked at the cue card and read, "Please welcome Lena Hartwell, Doan." For a moment the air seemed to thin, the room pausing between surprise and recognition. Evelyn's eyes found mine, her composure cracking for a fraction of a second before she recovered. "Lena," she said lightly. "What an unexpected reunion." I walked to the stage, every step rehearsed in my mind, and took the seat beside her. The host turned to me and asked, "You reached out claiming to be Evelyn's eldest daughter. Can you tell us about that?" I answered. "I didn't reach out to make a claim. I reached out to correct an omission." Quote. Evelyn laughed softly, the sound hollow against the microphones. "My eldest has always had a flair for drama," she said, facing the audience. "She's been estranged for years and struggles with—" I cut in. "Accuracy?" Because I brought documentation. The LED screen behind us flickered as Ivy signaled the technician, and the first photograph appeared, the original Christmas image. The one with all 5 of us, I said. This is the version taken in 2008. Before Graceful Motherhood existed. Then the next image appeared. The version from her blog. Cropped and color corrected. And this, I said, is what the world saw. Grassentist. The crowd murmured. The difference impossible to ignore. Evelyn leaned forward. Voice sharp now. Old photos get edited all the time. This proves nothing except that I'm meticulous. I opened the folder and handed the email copy to the host. Then perhaps this will help. It's an internal message from 2013 between Evelyn and her publicist. The host scanned the page and read aloud. For branding clarity, we will exclude the eldest daughter. Lena. She doesn't fit the tone. Gasps filled the room. Followed by silence. Evelyn's voice dropped. That email was taken out of context. I looked at her and said, what context justifies erasing your own child from every public record? She turned to the host. Pleading. You have to understand. Lena's been unstable since she left home. I replied. I left because you told me I was too hard to love. A ripple of whispers moved through the audience as Sophie rose from the front row. Mom. Stop, she said, her voice breaking. We all knew something was missing. You made us believe she never existed. Ice. Evelyn's lips trembled. But no words followed. Noah stood beside Sophie. His expression unreadable. The LED screen behind us shifted again, showing side-by-side timelines of Evelyn's posts and the dates each photo was altered. Ivy's voice came through the speaker feed. Calm and precise. Each of these edits corresponds to periods where sponsorship deals required family imagery. These are verified metadata records. The host cleared her throat, unable to hide her discomfort. Evelyn, do you wish to respond? My mother stared at the evidence, her polished mask slipping with every second. I was trying to protect them, she said quietly. From what? I asked. From you? The audience fell silent. She whispered. From imperfection. I stood, holding the folder against my side. You taught millions to love their children. You just forgot to include your own. Sophie's sobs echoed in the microphone, raw and unfiltered. And Evelyn finally looked away. The host ended the segment with a shaky voice, thanking us for a difficult but important conversation. As the lights dimmed, Evelyn remained seated, her gaze fixed on the frozen image behind us, the family she had manufactured, now exposed under studio brightness. I walked off stage, Ivy waiting near the exit, her expression unreadable. It's done, she said. I nodded, feeling neither victory nor relief. Only the strange stillness of something finally finished. Outside, the sound of applause faded into static. And for the first time in years, the story was complete without edits. 2 weeks passed before the noise settled into something like quiet. The footage of the interview had gone viral overnight, clipped into sound bites and headlines that ran under words like truth, betrayal, and exposure. My name appeared beside hers on every search result. 2 stories welded together by a single broadcast. At the hospital, coworkers stopped me in hallways to whisper, I saw it, and then looked away, unsure if they should say more. Ivy called to tell me her article had been published in the Ledger, titled, The Daughter She Cropped Out. She said, It's trending in 3 states. You okay with that? I told her I didn't know yet. It's strange hearing people believe me now, I said. And Ivy replied, They believe the evidence. You just gave it a voice. Her tone carried no celebration, only understanding. I thanked her, and she said she was already working on follow-ups about influencer accountability, her voice fading as if she were already on another story. The publisher for Graceful Motherhood released a statement the same day. announcing a pause pending review. I watched the video on their official channel where Evelyn's name disappeared from the author roster within hours. Sophie texted me. They pulled her from the tour. She won't talk to anyone. I answered. Let her rest. The truth doesn't need a sequel. Noah called that evening and said, she's trying to rewrite it again. Says she only wanted to protect us. I said, from what? Reality? He sighed and admitted, I think she's more afraid of being ordinary. 2. A week later, Evelyn posted her apology video. She sat in her living room surrounded by white flowers. The lighting soft enough to hide the edges. I made mistakes, she said tearfully. I never stopped loving my eldest daughter. I watched until the end when the camera caught a small reflection in the glass door, the lighting rig. The assistant holding cue cards. Sophie messaged me. Do you believe her? And I wrote back. She's performing again. The comment section split in two, some calling her brave, others calling her calculated. Neither label changed what had already been proven. Richard reached out after 10 silent years. His email said only, I'd like to see you if you'll let me. We met at een Airofie Vevendeerdish. Both pretending it was neutral ground. He looked smaller than I remembered. His voice low when he said, I failed you. I let her decide who existed. I didn't try to fill the silence that followed. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. But I need you to know it was cowardice. Not ignorance. I nodded. Answering. You were there. That's enough to remember. When he left, the receipt on the table showed he'd paid in cash, as if proof still frightened him. By the end of the month, Sophie moved to Austin. We unpacked boxes together. Her saying, I keep finding pictures of us that don't match the ones online. I said, keep the originals. Noah sent me a message with a single sentence. She's seeing a therapist now. I replied, good. Maybe she'll meet herself there. The interviews stopped. The calls slowed. And one morning, the world simply shifted to something normal again. One evening after a long shift, I came home to find the folder still by the door. Untouched since that night. I opened it, checked every page, and then closed it without hesitation. The apartment hummed with a quiet so deep it almost sounded like music. For years, silence meant absence. But now it was proof of peace. The kind that doesn't need an audience. Morning light touched the corner of my apartment where the framed photo stood. It wasn't on the wall or displayed for anyone else, just resting on the desk beside my notes. The same image that once cost me a family. The edges were worn from being handled too many times. But the faces inside remained unaltered. For the first time, I didn't see what was missing. I saw what survived. I made coffee, watched the steam rise, and thought about how every story eventually quiets down. Sophie had gone to work. Noah was finishing exams. And Ivy had moved on to another assignment. I hadn't spoken to Evelyn since the interview. And there was no reason to. The silence between us no longer asked to be filled. It simply existed. Steady and final. When the clock on the counter blinked 8, I texted Ivy a single line. Thank you for keeping the picture whole. She replied, you did that yourself. The words settled gently in my mind. Not as validation, but as fact. Outside, the city sounded like a heartbeat. Steady. Unremarkable. Alive. I had spent so many years trying to be invisible that I hadn't noticed what being seen actually felt like. Quiet. Grounding. Real. Before leaving for my shift, I adjusted the frame so the sunlight fell directly across my mother's perfect smile and my own unedited reflection beside it. The photo no longer hurt to look at. It was proof that every version of the story, no matter how cropped, still led back to this moment. I locked the door behind me and whispered, I'm not the erased part anymore. The words didn't echo, they landed exactly where they belonged. Thank you for listening to my story. If it reminded you of something you once lost, or helped you see yourself a little clearer, share it with someone who needs it. Healing isn't loud, it's the quiet you earn after telling the truth. Stay kind. Stay steady. And I'll see you in the next story.